quick draw competition open.
Howdy, everyone. Pull up a chair, kick up your boots, take a sip on a nice cold brew. It's the Quick in the Pod, a show on the Support Your Local Podcast Network, where we take a look at the 1995 Sam Raimi Western classic, The Quick and the Dead, one chapter at a time. I'm your host, Robert Smith, coming to you from beautiful Tombstone. Yes, that one. Today, we are going to take a look at Chapter 6, Kid versus Gutzon. But before we do, I see out on the boardwalk a tall, shadowy figure coming up to the Batwing doors. He's bursting it open, and it is the one and the only. It is the Shizzy, Mr. Sean O'Neill, dear friend of mine from way back. Sean, how are we doing today?
Oh, pretty good, man. How are you?
I am doing well, sir. I am doing well. I thank you for joining us today as we take a look at our chapter. What brings you to the podcast?
Oh, just passing through. Yeah. No, we talked about doing this quite a while back, and I apologize for taking so long to do this, but yeah, it's just when you had said you were going to be doing The Quick and the Dead, I thought that was a really cool idea. Being a fan of Sam Raimi, just thought it would be awesome, and I'm glad that you asked me to be a part of the show.
I mean, absolutely. When I decided that this was going to be the movie I was doing for season 2, very few. There's only a couple names that kind of popped in my head, and obviously, you were definitely one of them. So, little history about ourselves for those that don't know. Which, let's be realistic. Everybody that's listening to this knows me. Hi, Mom. Glad you're listening. Me and Sean go literally way back. We're talking middle school, even elementary school, like enrichment. But Shizzy was one of the unholy triad that was myself and him and our buddy Ruffles, members of a lesser known but not as lesser infamous group known as Python 2001. Some movie makers in our own right. So if you do enough internet searching or you go through enough landfills, I'm sure you could probably find a movie that was created by us. But Shizmo is one of my best friends growing up and going through high school, and is actually the person that got me really introduced to Sam Raimi. I would not have ever been the guy to check out The Evil Dead if it was not for us walking through Hollywood Video and you go into the cult classics section and saying, dude, have you ever seen this? You have to see this. There's a laughing deer head. And we were talking about 2, which we also ended up watching. But yeah, I owe a great deal of gratitude for a lot of the movies that I've discovered coming from Sean. So Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, just from Lima, Ohio, beautiful Lima. It's the same, but no, there's some changes coming though. It's gonna be pretty nice. They're doing some good things downtown, but now just like you said, we've known each other, gosh, since probably 4th or 5th grade on the bus to enrichment, and our fathers had worked together in for the phone company back in the day.
The other Robert and Sean.
Yes, sir. That's their names. Oddly enough, my dad's name's Robert, and
Mine's Sean.
No, it's the other way around, obviously. But yeah, just playing in my band. We're doing some gigs here. I just supported the Brad Allen Jones Band. Shout out to them. They're a great blues band. They asked me to do a acoustic guitar set for them just this past Friday.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, we don't really have any music online though. Otherwise, I would share links and whatever, because everybody's so busy. We don't have any proper recordings, but yeah, just some local yokels, just chilling.
And I can attest to your musical abilities. I mean, I've witnessed no fewer than 37 of your bands. I've unfortunately missed the ones in the past couple of years, but if you are listening from the Lima area and you don't know Shizzy and his various incarnations, you're missing out. Anytime that you're near the firehouse or any of the other local haunts, it's always going to be a good show. It's always going to be a great time. So definitely check them out. We'll hit up some plugs on some possibly some future dates that you have in the show notes. But Sean, as you've probably heard on some of our previous episodes, we do challenge all of our new guests to. It is a rule and a requirement. Herod has struck down the law that if you're new to town, you have to join the tournament. There's not any easy observations. You can't just be a looker on. So, Sean, what name does Pat Hingle get to chalk up on the board for you? What's your gunfighter name?
Put my damn name on the board. Well, I think that one's just going to be obvious. That's Shizzy. I mean, that's been my nickname for like 20 some years now, right?
I mean, yes, I think that there could possibly be an argument that more people know you as Shizzy than they do as Sean. The nickname may have outgrown the legend of the person.
That is true, because we were hanging out recently, and somebody had known me for a long time as Sean, and all my buddies are hanging around, so they go, "Hey, Sean," and they're like, "Who's Sean?" I'm like, so yeah, my nickname is definitely probably been known longer by my nickname than I have my actual, like, in my life. Like it's been over half of my life.
And on a bright note of that, I mean, having that nickname instead of your proper name, it does help when you're an outlaw. So if you are just a Western gunfighter, town murdering, it's better to be known as just the nickname. They can't really trace you down that well.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got Shizzy scribbled up on the board. Before we jump into our chapter, today it's going to be Chapter 6, Kid versus Gutzon. We do like to just take a moment and do a bit of a deep dive into one of the cast and crew of the movie, one of the movers and shakers, if you will, and just kind of take a look at their history before this movie, at this movie, after this movie. Kind of get you a feel for one of the characters, but at the same time, maybe if you like them in this movie, it gives you kind of a list to go check out things that you haven't done. And this one specifically today, I'm really excited to do with you because it's, again, an introduction that you kind of got me onto, but definitely somebody that if I had not known about him, I would not have sought out his other things, but have and a better person for doing it. But today we're going to look at one Sven Ole Thorsen in a segment I like to call "Put My Damn Name on the Board."
Put my damn name up.
All right, and here we are with Put My Name on the Board. Today, taking a look at one Sven Ole Thorsen. You may know him as Gutzon in this movie. He is, after all, the Swedish champion in regards to gunfighting. We'll get into that here in a little bit. But born in September of 1944, he is a Danish gentleman, hence the name. But known as an actor, stuntman, a bodybuilder, and strongman competitor. And he actually, I see in my notes here, he was actually Denmark's strongest man in 1983. And it doesn't necessarily show much in this movie because he's kind of covered in the Western garb and the big floppy hat. But looking at his filmography, you're going to realize that this is a very, very giant man. I have his billing here as 6'3", and in his prime, he was over 3 bills in weight. Known predominantly for a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. And obviously he had a tie-in with him through the bodybuilding circuit. So Arnold brought him in as a stuntman and as a character actor in a lot of his movies. But some of the bigger things that he's really known for, and where I first know him from, is the Conan movies, both Barbarian and Destroyer, or excuse me, and the Conqueror.
No, the Destroyer. I was going to say that, like, that's yeah, I was going to mention the Conan, the original 80s Conan movies.
Yeah, he is. For those that don't know, in the movie, in the Barbarian, he is Thorgrim. He is the long-haired gentleman that is the second to James Earl Jones' character. But the one that I can honestly say I didn't necessarily realize that he was the same person as I'm about to mention. But I remember him first from Conan the Destroyer, where he played Togra, which was the once again the long-haired gentleman that carried the big battle hammer and was on the team. He was the personal bodyguard to the princess, as Conan and Wilt Chamberlain are traipsing about the countryside trying to do their thing. I just remember him as this very large, muscular man with these piercing blue eyes. I think that's kind of his trademark, is just his physique and these blue, just piercing eyes. But I remember growing up as a kid seeing Conan on TBS kind of constantly on a loop growing up. So that was my first kind of exposure to him. I didn't know who he was. I just knew he was that guy from there. He went on to be a stuntman in Red Sonja, once again, another Arnold Schwarzenegger project. He was a extra in Lethal Weapon and Predator, Running Man. Again, you see these Arnold Schwarzenegger hits. I think he's in a total of like 12 Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. 1988, he's in Twins. 1989, he's actually a stuntman in Ghostbusters 2, which I found really interesting. All I can figure is maybe he's the stuntman for Vigo, because I can't picture I doubt he was being the stuntman for Bill Murray. 1990, he's in Hunt for Red October, once again with Arnie on Total Recall. 91, and this is the hidden gem that I did not discover until late in life. The Jesse the Body Ventura movie, Abraxas, Guardians of the Universe, which I did not know existed until listening to the episode of How Did This Get Made? Very famous podcast, for those that don't know, that goes over movies that should probably have never been made and just kind of lambast them. But listening to that podcast made me go in and discover this movie. And I believe you can currently find it absolutely free on YouTube. So if you have an hour and a half and you have not seen this wonderful, wonderful masterpiece, check out Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe, featuring Jesse the Body Ventura. But also in 91, Harley Davidson, the Marlboro Man, 91 as well. He was one of the security guards in Terminator 2. 92, he's a stuntman for Death Becomes Her. Lethal Weapon 3, he's one of the henchmen. He is a stuntman on Bram Stoker's Dracula. He is in Cyborg 2. He is in Nemesis as a cyborg again. 83, Last Action Hero. Hard Target. 94, The Dangerous, On Deadly Ground, A Low Down Dirty Shame. 95, you have The Quick and the Dead, obviously the movie that we're going over today. And then we get to our Heat. He's a stuntman. But 95, we have the movie that I'm glad that you got this chapter for. We have the Kevin Smith movie, Mallrats. And this would easily be what I would consider my introduction to actually Sven Ole Thorsen. So I said earlier, I knew him as the guy from the Conan movies, but I did not realize that's who this is. And it wasn't until listening to the commentary track of finding out with Kevin Smith, finding out who this guy was, that I was able to put two and two together. But I mean, Mallrats, Shizzy, obviously something near and dear to us. If you want to expound a little bit on your Svenness.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I saw Mallrats. I'm trying to think who he played. I'm looking up right now is LaForge, but I'm like, why am I not thinking of who?
He is the mall security guard wearing the boating hat.
Is he? Okay, all right. Yeah, I actually, you'll probably disagree with me, but I saw Mallrats, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, and I really thought that it this may be an unpopular opinion, but I don't think it really held up, because it's quintessentially a 90s movie.
Oh, 1,000%.
It is definitely 95. It's 1995 just in a nutshell, there's some things that to me it's but it still has a place in my heart. Still love that movie though.
I think I'm of a like mind, and I share a similar confusion in my heart towards Kevin Smith movies. Like, this was so much our teenage years and us growing into adulthood, and loved Kevin Smith. I mean, for Christ's sake, I used to wear a Clerk shirt to school.
Yeah. I mean, we were mall rats too.
We literally were mall rats.
Go to the mall and just hang out for like hours.
Every single day, going straight from school, hopping in my convertible. You guys, we would go to the mall, walk around, do absolutely nothing, and then go to Westgate and shoot pool for a couple hours. I mean, that was literally the daily.
That was it. Yeah, those were the days.
But I have to agree with you, man. Going back and watching some of I haven't seen Mallrats recently, but Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back had been on Pluto on a pretty good loop here in the past couple months. And I have to admit, man, I cringe a little bit going back on some of the things that I thought was so hilarious back then. Still decent movies, but they don't necessarily hold up. I have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah, but then like the original Clerks, though, to me still holds up. I think that was just a lightning in the bottle kind of thing, but it's I can still watch that movie and it's still great. But then like I said, I'm not hating on Mallrats. I'm just saying I was like, wow, this is just it's just not, it doesn't seem as funny as like when I saw it though, so many years ago.
Mm-hmm. I think Clerks has the benefit of it being kind of timeless in regards that anybody that's ever worked retail, that's retail life, and that hasn't changed from the 70s until now. I think you still have those same customers, you still have those same headaches. That stuff doesn't really change. I think that's what kind of gives it its opportunity to not be a time capsule, kind of like a Mallrats or a Chase and Amy.
Absolutely. And yeah, I can definitely relate to Clerks because I had worked in the carryouts and gas stations or what have you for a number of years in my youth.
When we were but Utes.
The two Utes. See, now we're just cross-pollinating. We're just cross-pollinating movie references now.
Yeah. Back to movies though. So again, you kind of have to encapsulate Sven-Ole Thorsen with his connections to Arnie, but one that I noticed on his filmography that I was not aware of, more of a prestige film, but yet just as actiony. He was actually in the Gladiator movie, the Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott's Gladiator. He was the Gaul, the legendary gladiator that he has to face at the end that has the mask on.
Oh, yeah.
I just remember that guy just being a big guy. I had no idea, and I knew who Sven-Ole Thorsen was at that point. I had no idea that was him, but that's a pretty big role in a pretty big movie for somebody that's kind of known more for Abraxas.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's for the rest of his filmography. I mean, essentially just kind of go down the checklist of Arnie's movies, but I did want to take a moment and just kind of appreciate somebody who, starting out as just a bodybuilder and somebody of that ilk in an Arnie movie, making a 30 plus year, almost 40-year career off of movies, just off of essentially a look of him. Got to give him credit to that. He is in a lot of movies, not necessarily known as a great actor, but definitely checks the boxes in regards to having a screen presence and being the characters that he plays. But that has been our deep dive into one Sven-Ole Thorsen. Please, if you've not already, check out a couple of these movies. If you're listening to something like this, I assume you're already an Arnie fan. It's just kind of in our wheelhouse. But if you've not checked out Abraxas, definitely check out Abraxas. But this has been Put My Name on the Board.
Let's not forget Route 666 with Lou Diamond Phillips from 2001. Actually, let's forget that movie. Actually,
I stand corrected. Yes, if you've not checked out Route 666 with Lou Diamond Phillips, definitely checked out. I don't know how that one missed my filmography. Where it is such an awesome part that they didn't even list it in his filmography that I can see. So that if that tells you anything.
yeah, I was just going with the Wikipedia, just kind of going with it.
Yes, there it is. It is. I apologize. I had 2 pages of my notes sticking together. Yes, it is right after Extreme Honor, aka Last Line of Defense 2, and Hollywood Next X8 exits as the landlord. So definitely getting into the prestige films before he hits that. But,
classics.
No. But once again, this has been Put My Name on the Board.
Add my name to the list.
Attaboy!
All right, and we're back. Shizzy, what do you say we jump into our beloved Chapter 6, Kid versus Gutzon?
Let's do it.
All right. So we start our chapter with Gutzon, played by the aforementioned Sven Ole Thorsen. He's walking towards the center of the street. And on the other side, we see the kid, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, getting ready himself. We see the preacher in shackles sitting at the bottom of some stairs. And we find out as it does a nice little pan up that this is actually Herod's home. So obviously Gene Hackman is wanting to keep a close eye on this preacher character, not letting him get too far. Maybe he's even enjoying just kind of peeking out the window and seeing that he's still there suffering. Eugene is there smoking a cigar, and he's yelling at the kid that he's going to be pissing on his grave tonight. So you got to wonder who exactly is Eugene rooting for in this match. I doubt it's going to be the kid. But when Herod comes out of the door, there's a nice little touch of Eugene really quickly quieting down and sitting in the chair next to him. And I have to commend these chairs. Something that really pops out at me is these are almost like throne-like. For a Western, this is some fancy chairs. And a man approaches a chair, and Hackman asks what the odds are on the kid. And if my Spanish is correct, and I know, muy poco, it's apparently 3-1 on the kid, if my Spanish is correct. So I find that interesting because we find out that the kid he's pretty good, and he is the owner of one of the gun shops in town. But Gutzon is similar. He seems to be an unknown who just came in for this contest, but apparently his rank of Swedish champion doesn't really hold some sway with the officials from the GFLA. That's the Gunfighting League of America. What do you think, Sean? Why such close odds on somebody that is kind of a relative unknown versus somebody that you'd think the town kind of knows the history of?
That's a good question. What were the odds again on that? I'm sorry, I was
on the kid.
In favor of the kid.
In favor of the kid, yeah. So if I put $1 down, the kid wins. I win 3. So I mean, that's not even a coin flip.
Maybe he's just everybody knows the kid, and he's got a reputation, whereas the Swede, he's just some foreign guy. They don't know him, perhaps, or just some sort of what do I want to say, like small town kind of xenophobia. Something like that, maybe.
That is fair. We do touch on that a little bit when Gutzon introduced himself in the bar as the Swedish champion. There was kind of a round of chuckles when he does that. So, maybe, I don't know, even today, maybe Sweden's just not really known for their gunfighters, but you do get a sense of that kind of, you got to be kidding me. Only here in America do we really have our true gunfighters.
Yeah. I think maybe also they think the Swedish, I don't know, that they're somehow soft, compared to their own people out, you know, in the frontier or whatever. You know, it makes a stronger, harder person.
Sure.
In their minds, I mean that because you know they probably don't know nothing of Sweden, especially at the time.
I mean, to be fair, during this time, I don't think that they knew much of Virginia, you know, but I also have to wonder, and you mentioned, you know, the stronger and harder for the gunfire. Is some of it the fact that Sven Ole Thorsen is a brick shit house, and essentially he is 3 times the size of the kid, so the kid's target is much easier to hit than a skinny 18-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh wait, hey Shizzy, what's the matter? What's going on?
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Oh, okay. I'm not entirely sure what just happened here. Wait, being handed something by my producer. It says Poochie died on the way back to his home planet. That's unfortunate. This was Shizzy. I'm not sure what the could. You know, I forget. Let's just start from the top. We start our chapter with Gutzon, who, as we said, is played by Sven Ole Thorsen, and he's walking towards the center of the street, and on the other side, the kid is getting ready himself for their battle. We see the preacher in shackles, and he's sitting at the bottom of some stairs, and we find out as it pans up that this is in fact Herod's home, the house that we saw a little bit earlier when Sharon Stone was getting her boots shined. Interesting that he's keeping them that close to home, apparently, so he can kind of keep an eye on him, or maybe if it's just for his own enjoyment, him being Herod, of course, being able to, you know, as he's shaving or as he's eating or doing whatever it is he does in Herod's home, he can kind of peek out the window and see the preacher sitting there in shackles. Eugene is there smoking a cigar, and he's yelling at the kid that he's going to be pissing on his grave tonight. So apparently still some bad blood there for the kid getting Eugene in trouble and getting him signed up for the tournament. Still curious as to what the friendship there was between the two beforehand, or if this has just always kind of been a bit of a contentious relationship between the two of them. Herod comes out of the door, and you see Eugene quickly quiet down and kind of settle himself. He sits in a chair next to the what is realistically a throne, like the one that Herod is using. So very ornate, fancy chair, not something that you would think of in the Old West, but it definitely is a nice one. A man approaches the chair that Gene Hackman's sitting in, and he asks him, he asks the gentleman, says, what are the odds on the kid? And apparently it's 3-1 if my Spanish is correct. I think I've picked up enough of it that I'm reading that correctly. And that's interesting as we'll find out that the kid is actually pretty good. And he is the owner of one of the gun shops in town. Gutzon is seemingly an unknown. He just came in for the contest. You know, he's the Swedish champion. As far as we know, that's literally the only reason that he's here is for the money in the tournament. So 3-1 is pretty good, but apparently his rank as the Swedish champion does hold some sway with the officials of the GFLA, which is of course the gunfighting league of America. You'd think that the odds may be a little bit better in favor of the kid, given what we soon know. But maybe he's not been tested up to this point, so we'll have to kind of stay tuned and see. Pat Hingle, Commissioner Gordon, of course, quiets the crowd and goes over the rules of the contest, with the draw happening when the clock tower makes the first chime of the hour. And we're going to get back to the rules in a second, but I want to take a moment and point something out. Going forward, keep an eye out on all of our gunfights. None of them, spoilers, none of them draw on the first chime. They draw when the hand strikes the hour. It's just a nitpick, but I am, if anything, an obeyer of the rules. I've been accused of many things in my life. Rule breaker, not so much. He specifically says that you draw at the first chime of the hour. Every single time we see somebody draw, it's when the clock strikes the hour. It does not give them a chance for the chime. Keep an eye out for that. We find out that if somebody does break the rule, then they will be called a cheater. And as we all know, in such a town like Redemption that is filled with scum and villainy, that has to be probably the stiffest punishment you could possibly be given is, somebody to call you a cheater. That's harsh. That cuts to the bone. And I guess they'll also be quote unquote eliminated from the contest, which prompts a rifle cocking from our favorite bodyguard. You know which one I'm talking about. I still stand by my theory that guy does not actually exist, that he is just a CGI sprite that Sam Raimi could cut and paste into numerous situations. Keep an eye out for the gun cocking guy. You know exactly what I'm talking about. He's doing the thing kind of like Terminator 2. He doesn't move, he doesn't talk, and every time he does that, I think he's facing the exact same direction. So I truly think that he may just be a CGI character. We'll have to see. The music ramps up as Gutzon, ever the gentleman, says that he would only wound the kid. And it's a nice little touch. You assume that if people are having a gunfight, it's with the intention to kill. Let's face it, that's what a duel is all about, right? So, but if this is just a competition, are you supposed to aim at just winning the guy? Do you go for the kneecap? I guess because these competitions existed in the real world in the Old West. So like, do you go in there with the intention of killing the guy, or is it just let God sort it out? My bullet may fly where it goes. I don't know. We then see a series of Sam Raimi zoom-ins, both of the competitors, the clock, even a guy just closing his window. And let me sidetrack here. Who is that guy? the guy shutting his windows. The entire town is seemingly out to see these contests. It's literally the only thing going on. Even if they weren't, I'm pretty sure Herod wants everybody to watch them because he wants to kind of continue that dominance. So who is this guy that is not only so against it that he's not out there watching, but he doesn't want to see it to the point that he's shuttering his windows? Is he a third shift guy and doesn't want the noise? Because trust me, I can relate to that. But is he taking advantage of the situation and he's maybe sleeping around with someone? Is he robbing the place? We don't see where the windows are located, so maybe some of those things are going. But what do you think? Tell me. Hit me up in the comments. What's Random Window Guy's story? We see our awesome photographer who looks like somebody straight out of a Smashing Pumpkins video, and just all I guess is this guy needs his own backstory movie. Like, I need to know more about this guy. Leo gets ready, and we see a behind shot of him crouching, and he looks just like the little plastic cowboy figures that you used to get as a kid, and I chuckle every time I see it because it's just a funny little pose. The music gets faster as we get a series of cuts from everyone's eyes, Hackman, Crow, Gutzon, Leo. I don't know if Raimi is spoofing the final fight between the guys and the good, the bad, and the ugly, but so far there are just so many references to it that you have to think it's intentional, just with a little bit of a Raimi touch. And we know that the spaghetti western was very much an influence for him in this movie. The clock hand hits the hour, and before any chime can happen, both draw. Just pointing that out before a single chime. Leo shoots Gutzon in the arm. For whatever reason, the kid thinks that that's good enough to stop a guy like Sven Ole Thorsen. Apparently, he's never seen Abraxas, Guardian of the Universe. Good luck with that. While he's bragging, Sven recocks his gun, but the kid hears it, and he takes out his leg with his next shot, and he gives Gutzon the chance to surrender, and he of course does so. So at least he's given the same courtesy back that Gutzon would have given him of not trying to intentionally kill him. The next thing that happens always baffles me. I want you to keep an eye on this. And I think it is something ripe for a riff tracks improv. So if they ever did this movie, maybe they have, I don't know. But if they have, this is definitely something that they probably would have pointed out. Gutzon gives up, and he tosses his gun over to where Pat Hingle is standing. And the only thing is, the gun is still cocked, and it's pointing directly at Pat Hingle. So if I was Pat, I would chastise him on some gun safety. You know, we live now in a post-Rust world, but this is not cool. This is not kosher, guys. You should never throw a cocked gun at someone. Like, what if it had gone off and blown off the head of either Hingle or the old guy from Home Alone, who we now see as the doctor? Given complete control, I'm sure Raimi would have had this happen. He would have written it in to where that gun goes off and something happens with 37 buckets of blood flying out of somebody. Maybe not. Probably, we still need the doctor character for the rest of the movie. We still need Pat Hingle, so maybe just a random citizen staying next to them, but somebody's head was going to get popped off. Ooh, maybe the great cameo for Bruce Campbell, maybe. Alas, Hingle declares the kid the winner, and the crowd goes wild. Hey! He's greeted with a long kiss from a red-haired lady, and we'll talk about that a bit more later. Hackman approaches the preacher and asks him how it feels to be back around that type of action again. And he asks him if his heart's beating faster, is his pulse racing. I have to ask, in a different movie, what if Hackman was asking him about the kissing? You know, we're to assume that he's talking about that type of action being the gunfight, but we're literally cutting back straight from Leo getting one planted on him from the red-haired lady. Just saying, Leo is brought before them, and he's being carried right to them after, and is Hackman asking if he misses intimacy as a preacher? I'm sure there's a shipping story between those two somewhere, and I'm not going to look for it, but I'm sure it does exist. So, internet, do your work. Leo is brought before Herod to seek his approval, but he's dismissed by him, and he's stating that the Swede was very slow, and you can see the crestfallen look on Leo's face hit, so it's a nice little touch. We cut to Spotted Horse proclaiming to the bar that he could not be killed by a bullet. He then lists off all the places that he's been shot previously, including one behind his left ear that day. And I wonder what the scenario would have caused that. Stone is seen watching Herod from across the room, and as his bodyguards walk away from him, she's tempted to take her gun and end him. Before she can, she notices him watching her back and averts her eyes, giving up on that prospect. So we'll see if she gets another opportunity later. We then see a montage against a black background of various guns being fired, presumably a recap of the fights that we don't see on screen. Two guns fire, and it cuts to Sharon Stone looking to the side, and she flinches when the gunshot happens. Remember, this is supposedly our hero. It is a great montage, though, because we see Spotted Horse shooting a man who we find out is named Montoya when Pat Hingle scratches his name off the board, who he has his gun flung away in the process, and the gun goes spinning across the screen, in front of Sharon Stone's eyes following it. And, mwah, chef's kiss on something that would be silly otherwise, but just, I don't know, it makes sense in a Sam Raimi movie. I can't really explain it. There's cuts of Crow, Hackman, and the clock tower, and then Eugene standing, and he's kind of pointing towards the camera, firing with both hands, and it looks a bit like Joe Pesci at the end of Goodfellas. But anyways, he's shooting, and we see another man who we'll know as Simp appear taking the shots, and he shot quite a few times, but I'm more intrigued by the situation. So how slow was this guy that Eugene was able to pull both guns and stand there and cock and fire both of them like that? There's more cuts to Sharon Stone looking upset at the murder going on than of Hackman cackling with glee at the carnage, and it's a great shot of him. It then cuts to our CGI rifle guy cocking his gun, so ding, put another one on the counter. Cantrell shoots from his hip, and he beats the Pride of Texas, Virgil Sparks. Scars shoots a man named Red, who boldly was going for a crossbody draw, so that was an interesting tactic, and we get to see how that pans out. We see Hackman then looking upset, and I wonder if Red was one of his guys, maybe? Otherwise, there wouldn't be a reason for the attitude change from one shot to the other in the Gene Hackman character. The montage ends with the music peaking, and Hackman is shown walking past the preacher and telling him it's time to fight. When he refuses, the character that we'll know as Ratsy pistol whips him and pushes him towards the store that Herod is waiting in. And that's where we end our chapter with Russell Crowe being thrown through the door of the store. And I'm sensing a pattern of him entering places. When Ratsy turns to the crowd to announce that concludes the lessons for the day, I wonder if he's talking about our show. That's nice. Crow kicks the door behind him, and it slams into Ratsy's face, and put another ding on the counter. That's going to be broken nose number 1 for the character of Ratsy. Spoilers. But that's where we leave it for today. If you haven't already, folks, check us out on social media. We are Support Your Local Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, anything like that, always looking forward to hearing from you. Hit us up at SUP, S-U-P-P, Your Local Podcast, at gmail.com. If you haven't already, please rate and review us. It's completely free, but it does a world of good for us as a podcast. So whatever your local podcatcher is, hit us up on there, hit the review, hit the 5 stars, whatever the highest rating is, and leave some great feedback. But until we meet again, I hope Shizzy's doing okay. I probably need to check on him. But until then, folks, as always, I love you. Thank you for your time, and support your local podcast.